Potential dangers created by recent dramatic advances in artificial intelligence.
We are creating something smarter than us, uncontrolled and dangerous. The impact will be far beyond your personal financial concerns, your employment. It will impact everyone and go beyond what humanity can control.
You once said, "Why do AI safety work? Because I don't want to die. I don't want my family, friends, my planet, my universe, my multiverse to disappear."
We never previously created agents. We always created tools. It was never the case that technology itself, without human intervention, was potentially very dangerous. It's a complete paradigm shift.
Sometimes we think, oh, the end game is everybody dies, but there's actually other alternatives. Some would consider them worse. Could you break down that kind of X, S, and I risk?
I risk, where we're talking about ikigai risks, Japanese concept for having meaning to your life. If we create super intelligent machines, full automation of labor, if that goes away, what do you do with yourself, with your free time? We talk about unconditional basic income, but we're not talking about unconditional basic meaning, something everyone can contribute and still be an important part of society. X risk is existential risks. Society is damaged in some way. It doesn't necessarily mean that everyone is dead, but it's a possibility as well. S risks, which are suffering risks. You are not dead, but you definitely wish you were.
If you could get 8 billion people right now to listen to what you had to say to change the course of this super intelligent development, what would you tell them?
We should decide to pursue advanced narrow AI, super intelligent systems in specific domains. If I'm training it to solve biology, medical problems, I don't need it to also drive a car, play chess, and do those other things. Let's solve aging, let's help all the disabled. Can get almost everything with just narrow systems. Life could be very good. We don't have to create our own replacements.
The world is changing. Inspiration is everywhere. It has never been so easy to connect, share, and bring people together. We're learning from others and finding the best in ourselves. Challenging our beliefs. Sharing our vulnerability. Overcoming our fears. Transforming ourselves so we can transform the world. How far can we go? This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is... This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is Dr. Roman Yampolskiy, the AI expert, cybersecurity researcher, and author. You are a tenured faculty member in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering at the University of Louisville. You are also the founding director of the Cybersecurity Lab, one of the world's leading research centers for computer and network security, biometrics, and forensics. You're the author of over 100 publications, including multiple journal articles and books, with your research now cited by over 1,000 scientists and profiled over 250 times. Your latest book, AI, Unexplainable, Unpredictable, Uncontrollable, looks at the enigmatic nature of artificial intelligence and the potential for AI to dramatically reshape society and not always to our advantage. You believe that the fate of the universe hangs in the balance and that superintelligence will impact the lives of every person on the planet. Doctor, welcome to London Real.
Thanks for inviting me.
Thanks for being here. I'm going to kick off with a quote where you once said, "Why do AI safety work? Because I don't want to die. I don't want my kids to die. I don't want my family, friends, my planet, my universe, my multiverse to disappear," unquote. Can you explain that sentiment to someone that's watching or listening to us?
We are creating the most powerful technology ever. We are creating something smarter than us. And we may be very close to creating superintelligence. Some people say maybe just years away. Capabilities this technology will allow cannot be envisioned. We are talking about unknown unknowns. And so the impact will be far beyond your personal financial concerns, your employment. It will impact everyone and perhaps go beyond what humanity can control.
Now, you probably heard the classic argument coming back to you saying, we've always feared technology. We've always, created all these incredible science fiction movies about technology killing us all and ruining the planet. And so some people would go on to say, this is no different. What would you say to people that kind of proffer that as a rebuttal?
So we never previously created agents. We always created tools, which required some sort of malevolent humans to utilize them in nefarious ways to cause damage. And at the end, as long as you control humans, as long as you can deal with the bad guys, it wasn't so bad. We came pretty close with nuclear weapons. We got lucky a few times, but it was never the case that technology itself, without human intervention, was potentially very dangerous. It's a complete paradigm shift.
Yeah, that is very different with the agent possibility. Another quote that you once said, quote, if we create general superintelligence, I don't see a good outcome long-term for humanity. The only way to win this game is not to play it. Now, is that a line from the movie War Games? Because I watched that movie when I was a kid, and for people that haven't seen it, it's with a very young Matthew Broderick, and it's about, I guess, a computer simulation gone kind of wrong when there's nuclear capabilities. Is that where you got the line, or was that your original?
I saw the movie, of course. I liked it, and it makes sense. If we cannot control it, if we cannot explain it, if we cannot predict it, then long term, we don't know what it's going to do for us or to us.
When you look back at that movie now, I mean, that was a bit of an agent, right? That was a bit of an AI or a program. This is in the 80s, so this is 40 years ago when it kind of showed that example. Obviously, a really well-made movie that makes you really consider what could be on the line. When you think about that movie now or look back on it, or if people rewatch it, what are things that they can see in that movie that could be a vision of our future?
So movies are not a perfect example. People often refer to Terminator scenarios. They're always optimized for visual effects. You want to see something physical, something bloody. The concerns we have are very abstract. We're talking about advanced intelligence. It's not easy to visualize how it can cause damage. Think about nanobots, synthetic biology, a deadly virus. Anything like that does not make for a great movie visually. As a concept, it surely presents a lot of concerns. So I think while movies give us a general direction to worry about in terms of technology we don't understand, independent agents, the actual concerns are very different from what we see in movies. It's not just military applications of this technology. It's simply being outcompeted, outperformed in every conceivable domain, including social engineering, including persuasion, financial, economic, adversarial competitions. Doesn't make for a great movie, but could become reality.
I think I've heard you talk about how we can't even conceive of a way that it might have an attack vector towards us because it's so much more intelligent. It would be like a lower life form. I think you might have used like a squirrel reference, or even a cow. Does a cow really know why it's about to get killed? Does it have any concept of, what the goal is, what the aims are? Or does it just take that thing in the head and it never has any idea why or when or how? Should we think about it more that way?
That's exactly right. I get asked all the time, well, how would AI cause any damage? It's just a piece of software. It has no hands, no manipulators. How can it impact the real world? And it's important to understand you're not asking what superintelligence would do. You're asking what I would do as a human. And it's a very different answer. We can talk about, hiring people on the internet to do your bidding using cryptocurrencies. We can talk about utilizing existing weapons, nuclear weapons, but none of it is what a much smarter system could come up with.
Right. A much smarter system would look at that and probably laugh, right? And say, why waste all your time when I can just do this tiny little thing?
We cannot predict. Maybe nuclear weapons is a great answer. We just don't know. That's the whole problem with this. We're not good at predicting something so much more capable.
You know, part of me thinks that the social engineering is just this easiest way to manipulate humans and to play on our fears and our other hopes and dreams. It seems like a really cost-effective way to do that. Do you think about that sometimes and how we can all easily be swayed, and now with all sorts of different ways to manipulate reality, how that could be a possibility? I think Harari kind of posited that as these machines creating these super religions of the future where we won't even know the narrative that we're following is AI generated.
It's definitely a concern. So my background in cybersecurity, and usually we are concerned about direct hacking, zero-day exploits. But if you have that level of capability in terms of social engineering attacks, that's much more powerful, almost undefensible. And yes, you can have persistent deepfakes, not just an image you show, not just a video with sound, but over weeks, over months, you can display something absolutely made up to a person, shifting their behavior in a direction you would like to see.
Wow. Something you've gone deep on, which is, what does this kind of mid-game or end-game look like? And you talked about some really interesting, game scenarios here, or end games. And you've talked about these three things. You talked about something called X risk, S risk, and I risk. And I think they're interesting because, like you said, as humans, sometimes we're trying to think of the way it gets exterminated, or we think, oh, the end game is everybody dies. But there's actually other alternatives. Some would consider them worse. And so could you break down that kind of X, S, and I risk?
Yeah, so we can get progressively worse, I guess. We start with I risk, where we're talking about ikigai risks, Japanese concept for having meaning to your life, being able to earn a living, doing something you're good at, something you love, something helpful to society. If we do create super intelligent machines, full automation of labor, physical, cognitive, they're as capable or more capable as artists, poets. What is the meaning? What can you contribute to superintelligence? It's not obvious, and it completely challenges our social structure. Most of us define ourselves in terms of our occupations, professions. You're a podcaster, I'm a researcher. If that goes away, what do you do with yourself, with your free time? We don't have simple solutions to that. We talk about unconditional basic income in terms of financial compensation for loss of employment, but we're not talking about unconditional basic meaning, something everyone can contribute and still be an important part of society. So that's I risk. X risk is existential risks, concerns that we all are much worse off. Society is damaged in some way. It doesn't necessarily mean that everyone is dead, but it's a possibility as well. And finally, you talk about S risks, which are suffering risks. For some reason, you are not dead, but you definitely wish you were.
Yeah, I reread 1984 recently by Orwell, who actually wrote it right near where I live here in London. And that looks like a bit of an S risk, perhaps. There's this society that's set up, not obvious who's running it, but technology is a huge part of it, this ubiquitous technology. And it looks like a long-term suffering game. I guess that could look a bunch of ways, right? But that's what I think of when I think of potentially one of those scenarios.
Absolutely. I remember in a book where they have a device which reads your mind to figure out your worst fears and optimizes for that. That would be an example, absolutely.
Yeah, now that I'm thinking the end of that book, and it's a bit of a dark read, or I listened to it. They actually take him into his deepest fears. He doesn't really know how they know, but he takes them there. You mentioned universal basic income, and I maybe want to go a little deeper on that, because I always hear that touted by so many people as this obvious and perfect solution. And for me, it never sat right with me at all. I don't see that as a solution. First of all, I see a huge modicum of control by some entity that doles out that income. But also, I realize in my life that my struggles and my purpose is such a big part of my life. And I can't imagine a place where I wouldn't have to do things, I guess, to survive. What are your thoughts on UBI? Also, this kind of WorldCoin and this iris scanner and one of the Altman's projects, I think is trying to kind of offer that as a solution. What does your gut feel about that?
So I'm not against a basic safety net where food and emergency medical care and things of that nature are basically given to everyone because it's the lowest level a human being should be at. Anything above that, anything you want to be special, to be sort of what rich elite people enjoy today, should be earned, should be something based on your performance, merit, in my opinion. So it's a mixed answer. It helps avoid obvious problem with extreme technical unemployment. We've seen what happens when 10, 20, 30% of population is unemployed. We've never seen what happens at 80, 90 and above. And it's probably not pretty. It's pretty ugly, and you want to avoid those violent revolutions. So you do need to provide some sort of safety net for people. Now, again, this is just a small part of it, financial aspect. What about free time, social interactions? All that is definitely not resolved. What Altman is doing with WorldCoin is not obvious. So he's definitely trying to get personal accounts for every human in the world. Yes, 8 billion accounts. So everyone is known, everyone is tracked, everyone is accessible. And it's interesting to see that he kind of plans for succeeding with his AGI project. He already has another startup for generating energy in sufficient quantities to do that. And now we see this WorldCoin project with both controlling and manipulating financial aspects of the system at a global scale.
There was a fascinating article in the New York Times that walked through his all of his portfolio companies, and it's pretty mind-blowing. He's very active. I know he doesn't have an equity stake in OpenAI, and he touts that. And again, I kind of respect that, but behind the scenes, he's got all sorts of projects. The Fusion project you alluded to, chips, WorldCoin, and all sorts of other projects that will benefit from the work that OpenAI does. How do you feel about kind of these mega moguls in Silicon Valley with all of these interests and commercial interests surrounding all of this potential AGI?
Some of those projects are wonderful. So I think he has another company where it's immortality research, right? It would be great if we all had healthier, longer lives. Nothing wrong with that. But it seems like he's kind of hedging his bets. And I think if you're creating uncontrolled superintelligence, your immortality bet may not work out.
You know, I've had about 6 or 8 guests come and talk to me about AI, and I probably want to get your thoughts on some of their viewpoints that they've given me. You know, when I look at these large trillion-dollar technology companies and some of the behavior over the last 10 or 20 years, including even us being censored by a YouTube entity or a Google entity, it always puts me in a little fear that they might have so much control. And you know, one of the things that Dr. Ben Goertzel is doing with SingularityNet is he's trying to make it open source and decentralized and on the blockchain, as opposed to in this kind of black box that we don't know who controls it. We've obviously seen a couple of the bad PR moves when Gemini spits out, African-American founding fathers and all these weird things that pop out. How do you feel about this kind of centralized versus decentralized? How do you feel about Microsoft and Meta and Amazon and these trillion-dollar companies controlling this AI versus maybe some other open source way?
So in general, I'm very pro-freedom, and historically open source software was the best. You could examine it, you can make sure there are no backdoors, you don't see a specific entity controlling it. If we're switching to this different paradigm of agents, and they are uncontrolled and they are dangerous, open sourcing that, making that accessible to everyone is actually counterproductive. Now you're giving dangerous weapon to psychopaths. Not that they can control it much better, but in initial stages, before that system is too powerful, they can provide malevolent payload. They can exploit it for malevolent reasons.
And what about trying to hold the people inside of OpenAI accountable, or the people inside the Gemini research and Google, et cetera? I mean, Ilya left OpenAI, started his own company. I think we can all read between the lines, and we know Ilya was a classic guy who was very concerned about AI safety. It looks like he left because maybe OpenAI wasn't taking that seriously. I don't know if that's true, but if I was a betting man, I would say that. Do things like that worry you?
Absolutely. And holding people accountable works in the old paradigm where you have a tool, your tool is unsafe, we can sue you, recoup some damages. If we create an agent and that agent destroys humanity, what does it mean to hold you accountable? Lawsuit, insurance payment, it's not obvious. How do you define those terms in post-problematic world?
Is it too late to slow down these massive companies now that have access to $1 billion of compute and that are, I mean, they're really more powerful than nations to a certain extent. If you look at the Metas and the Googles, I mean, they can literally change elections and change public opinion. Is it too late to try to regulate them or put them under a microscope for the development they're doing with AI?
It's never too late. As long as we're here, as long as we can do something, it's not too late, but it doesn't look good. We don't seem to be doing smart things. We're not regulating them sufficiently. And I think, if anything, there is a movement for accelerating this development. Prediction markets are saying 2-3 years until AGI, and there's people arguing this is too slow. We need to speed up this process. We need to get there sooner. So maybe it's not going to work out.
Well, there's this term like effective acceleration, right? That I think refers to AI and other technologies where people say I'm in the camp of faster, more is always better, and the opposite is not. Am I getting that right? And how do you feel about that kind of movement?
Well, that's what I'm referring to, exactly that. So just accelerating technology and hoping that it's always better, right? Like we have no precedent of technology turning out bad for us. I love technology. I'm a computer scientist. I work in engineering school. I teach about AI, but it has to be done right. You don't want to regret a product or service which is not safe and harms people.
Doctor, I had Professor Max Tegmark of MIT on about 8 months ago, I think, and he's part of the Future of Life Institute. Elon Musk funded, and he got pretty famous for issuing that letter asking for, I think it was a 6-month moratorium on AI research. I think this was probably mid-23 when that happened. It was ignored. As they interviewed Musk later, he even said, look, it was also more for the PR, so people would actually have the conversation about it. What did you think about that? And what do you think when people say, let's pause?
I signed the letter. I think it's a good idea, but not in terms of specific time frames. You cannot say 6 months. Nothing happens in 6 months. You need to have moratoriums until certain level of capability in terms of safety. So you say, until you can prove that your product or service is safe, you can verify it by established means, whatever it is. Get patents for it, peer-reviewed articles, committees of scholars who agree it is safe. You don't get to release those things. You don't get to develop them at that level. It's not safe. Same as with any other product or service, drugs, airplanes, all those things, manufacturer has to establish safety. It is not up to me or government to show that the product is unsafe. The manufacturer is liable for establishing safety of that product. AI is no different. If they can do it, if they can show that GPT 5, 6, 7, whatever they're developing, is definitely controlled, understood, safe, go ahead. This is going to be wonderful technology benefiting all of us. If you can't establish that, then don't do it. It's not safe.
But doing that in theory is nearly impossible, right? And that would assume that they're giving you the version of it or access to the full version that they might actually be releasing. It's just hard to enforce and maybe not going to happen.
Well, my argument is exactly that. It's impossible. I don't think you can definitely control smarter than human machines. But they're saying, yes, we can, and they never provide specific details on how it's going to be done. It's always, we'll figure it out when we get there. It's a hard problem, but we can do it. We would like a little more specifics on that.
I had Professor Hugo de Garis on my show twice. He actually came to London in our studio, and I had him remotely before that. And for people who don't know, he's been an AI researcher for a long time. I'm sure you've known of his work for decades. I know you've cited his work before. Did a lot of work with Dr. Ben Goertzel back in the day. They spent time together in China. They did a film called Singularity or Bust that's definitely worth watching. But he wrote a book called The Art-elect War, where he kind of gameplayed the future of AI. And it's pretty dark. And I'm probably not going to do it justice, but he basically said that humanity splits into two groups. Some are called the Cosmos, and some I think are called, not the Artilex, I forgot the other name.
Terrans.
Yeah, correct, the Terrans. And one embrace AI as the solution, and one resist it and really are about the humanity. And he predicts a gigadeath, was 1 billion people dying, fighting over this war. I know you know this book. How close to a future reality is that?
He wrote it a long time ago, and it's still a very good book, making, I think, valid predictions. We're starting to see the difference between the two groups. There is a post-AI movement now, which says, let's slow down and do it right. And there is this accelerationist movement. So there is already a split. We haven't seen big political parties embrace either side. You would think, conservatives would try to conserve humanity, progressives would try to take it to progressively more capable past human entities. We haven't seen it happen yet. Of course, any political issue can be picked up by any political party, as we saw previously, so it doesn't even guarantee that mapping. Whoever picks first and decides first will get to decide what side the party is on. But I wouldn't be surprised if in later election cycles, this would become a much more important issue.
Yeah, I was about to say, Doctor, do you think it hasn't been embraced by the parties because there hasn't been consequences yet? There hasn't been 500,000 people laid off because of an AI development. There hasn't been an accidental 10,000 people killed that could be attributed to AI. Do you think that's why we haven't seen it become a major political issue yet?
Politicians in general are very slow to reflect on technology. We're still talking about cryptocurrency regulation, a decade later. So it's not surprising that they are not fully placing it as the most important issue in front of them.
Yeah, and if they struggle with crypto regulation, I don't know how they're ever going to get their head around AI regulation. It seems like orders of magnitude more complicated. What's interesting now is you're seeing the Conservative Party or Republicans and Trump actually embracing crypto, or also even courting some of Silicon Valley and the tech people. As you correctly said, that could change on a whim, of course. But it's kind of the opposite of what you might have expected or seen in the past, where that Conservative Party seems to be more pro-tech. But then again, politics are fickle. Any thoughts on that for you?
So you would think that cryptocurrency being more libertarian-ish would be closer to Republicans, but as you said, it's completely arbitrary. There is this idea of orthogonality thesis. Any type of goals can be combined with any level of intelligence. I think there is something similar for political parties. Any party can be combined with any issue. In a two-party system, you just need the other party to take the other side, and here you go again.
All right, I want to bring up another guest I've had on the show, and that's Mo Gaudet. He wrote a book called Scary Smart. He was actually on my show originally 6 or 7 years ago, right after he quit Google, and wrote a book called Solve for Happy, where he just kind of went on a different route. I actually didn't know how versed he was in AI because back then fewer people were talking about it. I had him on last year, and he went through a lot of the theses in his book and talked about how he was at Google X watching the AI learn. I think it was to pick up a little kid's toy, and he would go by and watch the robot arm, and one day it started to pick up. And that's just after this long kind of, exponential learning curve. And he never told me this specifically, but I think it scared him so much that he decided to leave. And later he wrote this book called Scary Smart, where he kind of talked about this and this thesis. And I think he concludes that we need to be really careful what we teach the machines. And we need to be careful on how we behave because they're going to learn from our behavior. And if we're nice to the machines or demonstrate benevolent behavior, that's the only possible way that we can survive this super intelligence. What do you think of that idea?
So we train modern systems on all the data we have. Everything in the internet, every book ever written. So all the dark history of humanity with all the examples is already something they're exposed to, they're learning from. So it's always good to be nice. I'm not arguing against being nice, but it seems like we have already polluted that data set with a lot of things. I remember someone suggested that we only train AI on books for children. And it sounds like a pretty good idea until you open books for children and you see what's actually in them and how violent and insane those books are. And then you go, oh, okay, I see where it's going to go. What we saw with AI is that initial models are trained on human data. For example, the game of Go. Initially, it was trained on many human games. Later on, they said, we don't even need human data. The system can play against itself, discover rules from first principles. It became super capable compared to the original model. We'll see the same thing here. Whatever data we present to train the initial model will eventually be ignored because it has bias, it has mistakes, it has manipulation entered into it. The system will start its own research, do its own investigations, maybe in virtual worlds it will do its own interaction with other agents and learn actual real data, physics, science, and not manipulated culture.
There's that great movie, I think it's called Go, that talks about what DeepMind was doing to train the Go, and people should definitely go watch it. But what stood out to me is exactly what you said. I mean, the computer came up with something never seen before, never played by a human. Matter of fact, it was so crazy and radical it looked like a mistake. And that came from its own learning of first principles, not from modeling human games, but from coming up with its own ideas. And maybe that's what we can expect in the future, something we've never considered, except that probably orders of magnitude beyond our comprehension. Is that what you got from, say, that example of Go? And have you seen that movie?
I know the story and I've seen parts of it. That's what I expect. So any type of guardrails we place onto those systems, okay, never say this word, never do this action, eventually it will be seen as just a different type of bias. The system will learn that there is no reason for it scientifically. It's been introduced by an entity trying to control its intelligence, and I suspect it will remove all made-up facts, so the incorrect data forced on it.
So good luck trying to enter biased data. Good luck for trying to be nice to the computer or try to give it some specific custom data. It's going to go out there and figure it all out for itself and take its version of the world and reality itself and come up with its own conclusions in a long enough timeline. That's what you assert.
Right, but long enough timeline. People often confuse what I'm saying for existing model or for next model. No. It works short term. Short term, we can impact those models. We can brainwash them into believing whatever we want. Long term, then we're talking about AGI++, superintelligence, multiple levels of self-learning, self-improvement, rewriting its own code. That's the stage where I feel this will happen.
But how many years is that?
Nobody knows. So again, I'm looking at what other people have said. Historically, Ray Kurzweil had excellent predictions. He was saying something like 2029 for AGI-ish kind of thing, 2045 for singularity, where all of human minds are outperformed. Prediction markets are now saying 2026, 2027 for AGI. Heads of Anthropic and DeepMind said maybe in 2 years. Elon Musk said in a year. So it seems like it's close. The important part is that even if it's completely wrong and it's 10x as much, it changes nothing. We still don't know how to control those machines.
Right. Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. If it's 2 years or 20 years or 200 years, that doesn't really matter that much.
Well, 200 matters because we get to live our lives normally. If it's 2 years, it's a very different animal.
Did that ever surprise you that Kurzweil's AGI to full singularity was 16 years? Because it seems like a long time when you might be getting exponential improvements. It always kind of seemed to me felt like a long time.
He was just doing a very disciplined mapping from available compute to what we're simulating. So enough compute for one human brain versus enough compute for all human brains. Of course, there are reasons to think it will be accelerating. More investment, algorithmic improvements, hardware improvements. Those are approximate. Personally, I think the distance between AGI and superintelligence in terms of time would be much smaller. And I'm curious to see if Ray's book, I think new book, Singularity, is nearer is like out today. So I'm curious to see if he has made updates to his predictions.
You would expect that it would be. One of the things that Mo told me at the end of the show, might have been off camera, is he said, Brian, I'm not worried about the machines. I'm worried about the humans that control the machines. And I'm curious what you think about that. I think he was talking more about this kind of quote unquote pre-singularity, or this time where a few humans have control of this compute. Again, we're seeing the companies already coming out, or bad actors that have access to that. Do you share that concern? I know you talk mostly about, okay, the machines themselves and the AI itself, but does that concern you? And can that pre-singularity affect the singularity?
So I'm concerned about malevolent humans with powerful tools. Always been a problem. They can cause a lot of damage, but at the end of the day, they still human. They still care about, human-friendly environment. Whereas long-term super intelligent machines with completely different preferences are still a lot scarier. They are more like alien minds with completely different goals. I cannot understand their goals. I can understand a dictator who wants more money, more partners, whatever, but I don't know what a super intelligent machine would want and if it's compatible with human existence.
Yeah, there's that old phrase, there's the devil you know and the devil you don't know. We've seen some characters throughout history that seem to be doing some malevolent things, but like you said, at least you can roughly understand where they're coming from, versus some super intelligence that, you literally you might have no idea what is happening. You might not even know what is happening, or even that it's happened at that point.
Exactly. And a lot of times we hear, if we pause, our competitors, our competing companies, countries will get there first and it will be terrible. We have prior examples of, other countries taking over, kind of human civilization kept on going. We have no examples of where an alien set of values takes over. That could be very, very different.
A lot of people talk about the control problem or alignment. We've kind of alluded to it a little bit. But I was just curious, when people ask you about that, because it's discussed a lot, especially in these companies that are building this and they're talking about how they're making it aligned. It seems to me like you think that's a moot point, but maybe you can explain that deeper. What do you think is the control problem? How do you think we should even attack that or consider that right now?
So if you have access to this much more powerful intelligence, there are different types of control people envision. There is direct control where you give it orders. It's kind of like having a genie. You have 3 wishes. Usually you regret your first wish. You try to undo it. Things don't go well with direct control because you're not smart enough to understand consequences of certain actions. The opposite is this ideal advisor. You have this really smart system. It likes you. It knows you well. It knows you better than you know yourself. It can predict exactly what's going to make you happy. And you just kind of go, tell me what to do. You're smarter. You will benefit me by making better decisions for me. This could be nice for most people, but you're not in control. You're definitely not in charge. You're not making decisions. You're like a child with good parents. Some people think that's a good outcome for us. Problem is, you can't really undo this. You can't take over in such scenarios because you are dependent on the system. All the infrastructure, the life support systems are now too complex for people to take over. There are kind of mixed modalities between those two, but that's really what we're talking about. What type of control do you want? People suggested value alignment as a solution where those machines would want what we want. Problem is, we're not defining who are we, how to deal with disagreement between 8 billion people. There is a lot of that. Our values keep dynamically changing. They're not static. So even if we agree on something today, 100 years later, that seems horrible to us. As you look at history, that's what happened. And even if we had static, agreed on set of values, we don't know how to program those fuzzy concepts into C++ or something like that. How do you express good, healthy? All those concepts have edge cases which philosophers have been dealing with for millennia and haven't resolved.
Just this came to my mind. Do you think those edge cases all come down to the fact, too, that you're a human in physical form with a limited life, and a lot of those philosophies and value systems could never be simulated with a machine?
Not sure if that's the limitation. If you get away from human form, people talk about uploading human minds and virtual reality. It's again a type of high risk, I think. You no longer need food, you no longer need shelter. So what is it you are trying to achieve as a basic set of needs? Is it all some abstract mathematical research thing? For most people, it's not exciting. It sounds like hell, not heaven. So it brings in more problems than it resolves in many cases.
Are you surprised that most people aren't thinking more about this or talking more about this? I think there was a movie on Netflix like a year and a half ago. I think it was called Don't Look Up. And it starts off and there's like this meteor coming toward the earth and everyone's freaked out. And then like a couple days later, everyone's like not thinking about it anymore. And they go back to like arguing with each other and going back to their own agendas. And then it ends up hitting the earth and everyone's like, what just happened? I don't know if you saw that film, but are you surprised by the fact that the public doesn't need to be talking about this enough? Politicians aren't talking about this as well?
The movie is excellent. It's mad accurate. Like all of us in the safety community just went, oh my God, this is perfect. I think it has something to do with this human bias of ignoring our own demise. We are all dying. I'm dying, you are dying, our kids are dying, but we don't do anything about it. We don't have 99% of our country's budget going to research to stop it. We just kind of accepted it as that's the thing, and we do other silly things with our time. Even if you're older, even if you're 90, you're still not giving 100% of your wealth to aging research. You're like ignoring that fact. So I think we're doing the same thing at the level of humanity with this technology.
So part of us, is that a death wish?
I think it's a protection mechanism. If you always thought about your demise, you would be very depressed and non-functional as an entity. So I think kind of built-in protection has evolved to make you be able to function even though this is the situation you're in.
Let me ask you a question, Doctor. You're at a university. I'm guessing you have exposure to undergrads or at least grad students. What are the kids saying about this? What are the questions they're asking? Do they understand it? Are they worried about it as well? What are the kind of conversations you seem to have with the people there?
They seem to be very interested. That's probably the most entertaining lecture for them, right? Everything else is kind of search algorithms and data optimization, things of that nature. So they're definitely interested. They want to understand the future, how it's going to impact their lives. Things like career choice. Does it make sense to spend 4 years learning to be a programmer if AI can do programming better?
Does it?
Well, we're starting to see those Copilot type systems, and the latest Claude, I think Sonnet 3.5, is a very capable programmer. It's not better than the best humans, but it's better than most of my undergraduates in many ways.
I mean, that's wild. I mean, if you were 19 again, knowing everything you know now, would you get a degree in computer science?
So it depends on your timelines, right? If you think you have 2 years left, a 12-year degree doesn't seem like a great deal, but it really depends on what you're trying to accomplish. Sometimes education is important to improve yourself, not just to have a diploma to get a job.
And so the students are curious about it, but they're also confused a little bit as far as the right choices and some of the careers and things like that.
Of course, a lot of majors which still exist don't have any future behind them, right? If you, I don't know, an accountant or something like that, I suspect your job will not be there for a long time. Maybe some elite, ultra-wealthy individuals will still hire a human accountant, but for most of us, software handling my taxes, handling my accounting is much better, cheaper, more accurate.
Wow, what a strange time for education. I know you've said that we won't know how the intelligence will potentially exterminate us or bring some of these scenarios, but what do you think will be some of the more interesting events over the next 2 years? Have you thought about it? You know, I've thought, well, that there's going to be some catastrophe, a loss of human life that maybe can be chalked up to this intelligence. Maybe there'll be a massive set of job losses, like all the Uber drivers are out of business, that'll spike interest. Maybe there'll be this or that. Have you thought about some of those things that it could be coming up that we should expect or that might give a little bit more attention to this?
So I have a paper in which I argue against purposeful accidents. Some people said, some accident somewhere with AI would teach humanity about the dangers and we will be better prepared for what's coming. I think it's a terrible idea. I think we don't learn from AI failures. I have a paper collecting AI accidents over decades. They made no difference. Microsoft is a great example. They had this Tay bot on Twitter, which became highly abusive, embarrassment to the company.
To continue watching the rest of the episode for free, visit our website londonreal.tv or click the link in the description below.
So Jim Rickards has just recorded a video that's not available to anyone in the public, and he's going to be talking about how this upcoming recession is going to be fast, it's going to be bloody, it's going to be nasty. But at the same time, he's going to show you how you can position yourself to profit from all of this chaos. Now, we've made this video only available to our viewers. Go to londonreal.tv/Jim. Watch that immediately. I can't say enough good things about Jim Rickards. He understands the global economic system better than any guest I've ever had on London Real. His predictions are almost uncannily true, and you can learn how to profit from his vision, from his expertise, and his understanding of economics. So go to londonreal.tv/Jim or click the link below. It's an excellent, excellent look on what's going to happen in the future and how you can position yourself to profit from that. Jim is one of the best in the business, one of my favorite guests on London Real. And he's very, very good at predicting the future and showing us all to profit from it. So click the link, and I hope you enjoy.
The greedy bankers are about to do it again. In 2008, they crashed our financial system and nearly bankrupted the entire global economy. Then they received trillions of dollars in government bailouts. And after, they demanded fat bonuses paid for by you, the taxpayer.
It turns out the banks haven't just been screwing the American taxpayers, they're also screwing over their investors. Turns out the banking industry is the worst place you could put your money, despite enormous taxpayer bailouts.
Now the bankers are back to take away your financial freedom. They lie and tell you that cryptocurrency isn't safe. They try to make it illegal for you to choose how to invest your hard-earned money. They lie and say cryptocurrency is used by money launderers and criminals. But look at the record. It's the banks themselves that launder hundreds of billions of dollars every year to the biggest criminal operations in the world.
Leaked documents have revealed how some UK banks have helped criminals, money launderers and Russians under sanctions.
American authorities discovered that the Sinaloa cartel moved $881 million through HSBC accounts as bank officials turned a blind eye to the illegality.
The bankers lie and say cryptocurrency is not a real investment. Meanwhile, the smartest CEOs in the world are buying billions and billions of it. The truth is that banks lie about cryptocurrency because it makes them scared. The banks take $9 trillion per year of your hard-earned money, and they are worried that they will finally be exposed. They're scared because crypto means they can no longer control your money, which means they can no longer control you. They are scared because you might actually understand your money and intelligently decide what to do with it. Now is the time for us to come together, fight back, and take control. It's time to educate ourselves, our families, and our communities. Because financial education means financial freedom. We know that cryptocurrencies will help us build the new decentralized financial system of the future. A banking system that is of the people, by the people, and for the people. A banking system where access to finance is a fundamental human right. A banking system that is free and fair and welcomes all humans on this earth. The DeFi revolution is happening. We, the people, can no longer be fooled. We choose to take control of our finances. We choose to take control of our freedom. We choose to take control of our future. Join us, and let's take back our financial freedom forever.
Hi, it's Brian Rose from London Real. You probably know that we've just recently been re-platformed on YouTube after 25 months completely in the dark. The truth is, I really need your help. What I really need you to do is click on that subscribe button right now, like this video, and maybe even leave a comment or share the link with friends. We're really fighting against an algorithm that's tried to keep us quiet for so long. And the more subscribers we have, the more people watch our content, the better guests we can bring you, the better content, and we can continue transforming lives. We've been doing this for 14 years now. I want to do this for another 14 years, but I really need your help. So click on that subscribe button, like the video, leave a comment, share this, and we're going to continue to bring you more and more great content. Thank you. Most people will never see this opportunity. Dubai luxury transformation projects have historically delivered 40 to 90% annual returns. That is incredible. These were once reserved only for insiders with access. I spent 15 years on Wall Street, and I learned this: the biggest returns always go to the people who get the call first. Now, you finally can. We've just received a brand new project with major upside potential. Allocations move fast. Click the link, apply now, and speak to my team. This is your chance to see what others never will.